Well, hello again. Yeah, I was real happy to see all the responses I got from our last video. A lot of you folks are happy just as much as I was to see this thing pick up a record and start spinning it, as one person said, spinning a platter. Well, I'll tell you what, I'm glad you all enjoyed that. I'm glad you all appreciated it as much as I did. It was kind of fun to see that, wasn't it? After all this crap, I can't believe you guys are still hanging in there on this project. Anyway, you'll remember last time, after we got this thing seemingly running real smooth, right in the beginning, it would go down, it would kind of like do a little dance right here, and then a little jump, then it would go back. I never could quite figure out what was causing that jump, and I think a couple of our good subscribers, Russell Cussick and Harry Hall, told me what the problem was. On the top of this gear box right here, let me turn it around so we can see it. Right here at the top of our clutch, right here, there is a thrust plate that's missing. The thrust plate, let me zoom in here. The thrust plate is supposed to press against that ball bearing in the center of that gear right there. What's happening is the carriage is going down this way, down the track, and when it stops and come back the other way, this gear right here, without that thrust plate to hold it down, apparently what's happening is that gear is jumping up. And when it jumps up like that, of course, there's a long shaft that goes, all the way down. You remember that long shaft that went all the way down. It's attached to this thing right here. It was jumping the sprocket at the bottom, and in turn was jumping the gear that connects to this, that runs along this track right here. Okay. So both Russell and Harry jumped in there and said, "John, you need to get the thrust plate on there." Russell said it was part of the counter solenoid mess. This is the counters. This is the counter that counts all the plays. Remember I told you? And this is the solenoid. We're going to go over that later. I thought that was pretty cool. Coming out of this solenoid, by the way, is a wire. There's a black wire. Back up here a little bit. There's a black wire, and then you can see that there's a white wire right there. Well, that black wire, white wire, will eventually connect to this black wire and this white wire here. That's why I have them just kind of hanging there, because I'm not ready to hook them up yet. However, they said attached to this is the thrust plate. Well, when you look on down here, boom! Guess what's right there? The thrust plate. I removed it in order to remove all this in the beginning, because I didn't know really what I was doing, when I was tearing this thing apart. First time I ever tore one apart. First time I'd ever seen any of this stuff up close. So I was being like really careful, and I said, well, I'll just take this loose and leave it right where it's at, so I don't have to worry about finding it and figuring out where it goes later on, make it a little easier. Well, I never did put the thrust plate back on. Well, guess what? It's going to go on now, and I appreciate both Russell and Harry telling me about this. So let me take these two screws off. Eventually, this will fasten back to it, but this will be attached to the top of that clutch. So let's get it off, clean it up, and I'll show you a little more of a close-up on it once it gets cleaned up a little bit. Well, she looks pretty good. Now this is the top, and there is a Allen wrench screw down through the center. And what that does, you have to loosen up the nut and then adjust it in and out. And when you do that, this little flat area right here, the whole thing is called a thrust plate. This little flat area right here presses against the ball bearing on the top of that shaft, which is right there. That's a ball bearing, okay? And these two screws hold it in. I'll show you what I'm talking about. This thing will set in here like so, on top of that ball bearing, just like that. And of course, up here is the bracket that holds that thing over there that's attached to our counter. So I'm going to have to get the screws in and get them tightened down like so. Now, the only problem I have is the book requires no more than 2/1000 end play after that thing is screwed down in there. Now, What that means is I need a feeler gauge that's 2 thousandths thick. Now the smallest I have is at 006, is a 6 thousandths. Look how thin that 6 thousandths is. Now a 2 thousandths is 2/3 thinner yet. I don't have anything that goes that small. The only option I have left at this stage of the game is I'll go down and buy a whole new feeler gauge set, which I don't plan to do. Or just go ahead and bolt it set. Looks like it's set at factory. You know, it has never been messed with. Might as well just leave it there and see what happens. But of course I'll have to put a little bit of grease. I want to put some grease here. I don't want to lay that in there dry. Give you a little close-up of what that looks like. It's just a flat little deal, that's all. So we'll slather a little bit of grease on there and then put it back. There's no gasket required as far as I can tell. There might have been. I don't think so. And we'll go ahead and screw it back on. See what it looks like. Alright, now that we've got the old thrust plate on right here, let's go. Now we need to test it out, see if it's going to work. You know, is it jamming it down too tightly? By the way, the end play, I think, on that shaft is not measured from the top anyway. I think it's measured down at the bottom. But it doesn't matter. I don't have a 2 thousandths feeler gauge. Alright, let's go ahead and fire it up and let it warm up for a few minutes. Alright, that ought to be long enough. Let's go ahead and put it in a scan and see if she'll move. All I'm going to do is jack it to the right. Well, how about that? And watch it jump anyway. No, it didn't jump. And back again. Well, I tell you what, she's running really smooth here. Alright, back to the play position. And I'm going to try to pick up record C4 again. Okay, I think it's C4. Let me look here. I got it in C3. Let's try C4, see if it'll work. Here's C. Oh, I guess I need to put money in the machine. Well, I'll tell you, this even my own machine demands I put money in it. This is horrible. Alright, there's the money. Bulb is lit. ABC. 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yes, it is. It did pick it up. I'm going to get this needle over there on there. Okay. Alright, I'm happy with that. Now, what we're doing here is we're picking up on the B side, I believe. So, what I've been trying to get this thing to do is this thing here has to move over to this side. Apparently, A side is on the left, B side is on the right. I really didn't know. But, we're going to move it. I'm going to try to put this thing back in there. Let's find out if the record reject button works. It hasn't been doing much lately. Let's see here. Let's see what happens. Yes, it rejected the record. I don't know what this is going on. There's something else supposed to happen, I think, besides that. What is that all about? Bummer, huh? Oh well, that probably has to do with a few more adjustments I have to make on the electronic side of the house. What happens if I flip it this way? There we go. Might have something to do with that reverse switch. I may have to do a little cleaning on that. Alright, at least we know the record reject switch. Well, I'll tell you what, let's go over everything we know thus far. You know, let's just not... Let's do an evaluation. We now know that the motor's good. We know that the reverse switch is probably operating the way it's supposed to. We know that the Torment electrical selector buttons are working properly. We know that our credit unit is working properly. We know that our Torment is working properly. And let me see, what else do we know that's working? We know the clutch is working properly. We know the turntable's working properly. We just have to do a few adjustments on the electrical side of the house. How about that, huh? And we know that the reject button is working. Now, we do know over here on the amplifier that channel 1 is not operating. Now, channel 1 was putting out some very, very, very low audio. I mean, you had to get your ear down by the speaker to hear it. But other than that, so actually we've come a long way. We've got a lot of things that are working here now. Matter of fact, we have more working now than we do not working, which makes me feel a whole lot better. And we also know that our service switch is working fine, the way it's supposed to. And we know that our add-subtract solenoids are working. We know that our trip solenoid is working. We've come a long way, guys. All right, let's see if we can't select. I'm going to cancel everything out and see if we can't come back and do a left side. And maybe this thing will work like it's supposed to. This entire cradle will move to the left. If it doesn't move to the left, I don't know what we're going to do. We'll just have to wait and see. All right, let's see again. We'll put more money in it. We're starting from scratch. We got our light lit again. And we're looking for the left side C3 this time. Last time we did C4. We'll do C3, C3. Come on, baby, pick it up. It picked it up and it moved to the left. You know, do we have a repaired jukebox now? Oh! Do we have a repaired jukebox? Listen to that. Little acoustic noise there. All right. I'm getting happy. We're going to move a couple of records around here and see what happens. Let's do a reject. The record is back in. I don't know. Let me hit this here. I don't know why that's doing that. I don't know why that's doing it. I may have to do a little cleaning down in there. She's doing it again. What the heck? Might do this tone arm here. No, it's got to be this thing here. Got to be that thing. All right. All right, let's move the record around, see if it'll pick it up in different places. All right, I've got it in F7, and instead of starting from scratch again, the light is still lit, which means I have a second selection, just as if I had put in enough money to have two selections. So let's go ahead and press F7, see what happens. There's F7. Nothing's happening. Well, isn't that just sweet? Well, I guess I have to start from scratch after all, huh? All right, let's... I shouldn't have had to do that. I don't know why I did. Let's go ahead and shut her off. Let's go back to play. All right, let's go ahead and put some money in it. I shouldn't have had to do that, but there might still be something wrong with our Tormat electrical selector. I don't know. I haven't really cleaned the switches real good under there, by the way. A, B, C, D, E, F. Make sure I have it in F7. I have it in F7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Get some of this crap out of the way. Nah, I may have something wrong with my Tormat electrical selector buttons. It's not going where it's supposed to go. Let me play with it a little bit here. Well, she's wanting to move, but she keeps doing this. I don't know what that's all about. I have to keep messing with that to get it. There must be something. There she goes again, see? That does stop it. Yeah, well, she is moving. I set it for C3. There it is. Now I did pick it up. And again, this thing did move to the left, so I'm pretty happy with that. And just picking it up on the other side of the record. How about that? Okay, well, we've still got a problem. Now, when I hit the reject button, she starts its little hopping along the track. I'm not sure. There it goes. See, the record's back in the rack, but she starts this stuff. I don't know. Well, since I haven't got the foggiest idea what's causing this thing to jump along the track like that, I'll probably have to wait until I get some input from some of our more learned people in the comments section of this video. I've decided, I just went ahead and made a command decision. What we're going to do is we're going to ignore that right now and just, now that we have our needle and our pickup arm on the left side of the record, which is what I've been striving to do for quite a while. I'm just going to go ahead and plunge right into the needle adjustment. And of course, the first thing it says is you have to put a record in, make sure it's on the left side, and then the needle you have to position it in the center between this lead-in portion of the record. And then you have to adjust this one right here to make sure that's where it goes. So let's see. Let me see if it's. I want to go ahead and I'll just adjust this baby down until it lands. See, what you want is once the record is in, you want the pickup arm to go across and start playing the record right here, about halfway between where the record begins and the edge of the record. So that's what I'm going to do. They say go ahead and use a transparent record if you have one. That way you can look from the other side over here and see where your needle is hitting. But do I have a transparent record? No. Did I have a chance to buy one a while back at a flea market? Yes. Did I buy it? No. Oh, what a chump. Sometimes I make myself wonder. Anyway, we'll get it in that little tiny space and then clamp down this screw. Take care of it, tighten it on down. Alright, it's kind of difficult to find out exactly where that needle's hitting on that record right there on that edge. So the way I solved the problem was I just took a black marker and let me see if I can zoom in here. I just took a black marker and marked the center. I used the needle as my guide, pulled the arm away like this and just marked it with a black pen right there on top. And then we'll pull it all the way out. And as you can see, get this light out of here. As you can see, it's a little bit too close to the edge, okay? It's supposed to be somewhere in the middle. So let me go ahead and adjust this thing. Now you're supposed to hold this down with your finger, nice and tight against the casting when you do this, okay? And then just adjust this screw right here. I'll come back and do it for a second time. I just want to show you guys how I do it. And then we adjust the black mark to where you turn it to the right. See it going in toward the center? There you go. It goes in toward the center. I'd say that's about right. Okay, everybody catch on to what I did there? Now it is important to hold this thing down with one finger hold this thing down tight so this bracket here is against that casting while you're making your adjustments. If you don't, believe me, it'll have a tendency to kind of creep its way to the edge of the record. So clamp it down with your finger while you're making your adjustments, Of course you can't get in the way of the screw, but you have to hold her down like so, okay? Alright, let's see what it calls for next. Alright, the next thing says that we've already adjusted this one last time. Now we need to adjust the one next to it. This is adjustment number 2. This is number 1, this is number 2. And what you have to do is unlock this lock nut here and screw this thing out pretty far, almost to its limit. The pickup arm has to be on the left side of the record. And you'll notice the carriage is also on the left side. I'm getting so I can figure out how to do this now. I found out that if I rotate the shaft on the motor, if I push the shaft, and I've been kind of rolling it this way, but if I push it that way and get this thing to roll downward, it'll eventually cause the cradle to move to the left-hand side, putting the pickup arm on the left-hand side where I need it in order to do this adjustment. So what I'm saying is, depending on which way you rotate the motor coupling will determine which position the cradle, it'll either go to the right or go to the left. So if you're rotating the motor coupling and this thing is moving to the right and you need it to go to the left, then you need to rotate the coupling in the opposite direction. Nothing to it. I wish I'd have known that in the beginning. Would have saved me a lot of headaches. Anyway, I just kind of realized that. I think that's what Harry Hall's been trying to tell me all along, but it just wasn't sinking in. Sorry, Harry. Depending on which way you rotate the motor coupling by hand, over here. That's the coupling right there. Way down in there, nice and deep. It's a rubber coupling. It connects the shaft up here to the motor shaft, alright? Sometimes they go bad and crack and everything. You got to split and go to pieces. You got to buy a new one and put those in there. They do make reproduction couplings, by the way. Anyway, I discovered all I had to do was get it to go this way instead of that way, and it caused the cradle to move to the left, which is cool. Now what I have to do, it says first thing to do is you unlock the lock, screw it out all the way, and insert your screwdriver into the slot, push straight down, and then release. Note clearance between the screw and the cradle. Well, that's easy enough. This item right here is called the control fork, and it's connected to that screw. See it? You get a little clarity here. I'm starting to get a little grease on my camera again from messing with all this stuff. Wipe my hands. I do the best I can. Anyway, what you have to do now is you have to hold this down. You note how much play is there, and you kind of move this thing back and forth, and then you tighten down that screw on down until the play is eliminated, just barely eliminated. Then you back it off a quarter of a turn. Alright? Well, we can do that. Alright, I think I got it. She's nice and snug, no play in it. Now I will back it off a quarter of a turn. I imagine some of these adjustments don't have to be exactly precise. I mean, you know, it's sort of like resistance values in the old radio. So a quarter of a turn is about right there. Now I'll go ahead and hold my screwdriver in the slot and tighten up that lock nut. And hopefully that'll solve that part, and we'll move on to the next segment. Now when you're done adjusting this second screw right here, you will have, after, you know, backing it off a quarter of a turn, you're going to have some play there. A little bit. And they said you need that, otherwise when this pickup arm moves left and right and does its action with the record, you know, goes down on the record and moves left and right. If you have it down too far and too tight and there's not any play whatsoever, it could bind. And we don't want our pickup arm binding down in there because we got stupid and tightened it up too tight. Especially me. I do enough stupid things on this thing as it is. But look what we are learning, people. Well, this thing is actually a fairly long procedure. The one thing I don't like about it that makes it tough is you have to keep switching between the play notch and the scan notch. Play, scan, play, scan. Make sure you pay attention to that when you do your adjustments of this needle pickup arm, because it has, right now I just had to switch it from scan back to play and make sure that this thing is on the left side again. Okay. The next thing we have to do is we have to adjust this screw right here, which is called pickup number 3, and it involves this pin right here. This is called the lock lever pin right there. Now when the arm goes in and out like this, that pin moves, and there is a V-shaped thing right here. You get down here close, see that little V-shaped thing right here? That pin I just moved back and forth, that lock lever pin is that black thing right there. On the top, it's hard to see, I'll get you down there where you can see it. This V-shaped thing sits on top of that pin. Now when you move the pickup arm, the V-shaped thing moves past that pin. Well, no, the pin, I guess, moves back one way or the other. One moves past the other, and they want to, those double lines right there is 1/32 of an inch. They want that much clearance. And the way you get that clearance is by loosening this lock nut and adjusting this right here. This is, again, see, this is your fork. Okay, so let's see if we can get a shot down here where you can see that thing moving past there. Okay, right there is the that V-shaped thing right there. That's the bottom part of it. And when that pin moves back and forth, see, we need 1/32 of an inch clearance, and you can see we have a lot more than that. Okay, so let me go ahead and unlock this nut right here. Okay, she's unlocked. And what we're going to do is screw the thing in. We're going to screw it in, which pushes against this arm right here, which in turn controls something behind this plate that'll close up that space right there. So we need to kind of put it like that and kind of screw it in or do something to it. I guess I'll screw it in and see what happens first. Alright, I do believe I have it. That's about, I know it doesn't look like it's 1/32 of an inch, but it actually is. When I release this thing, this detent with my finger. It drops it down, and we get that 1/32 of an inch clearance. Best I can do, okay? Better than it was, I'll tell you that. Before I started, it was way down in there. I mean, it was down on the other, draped across the other side of that pin on this side and on this side. So we're good to go now, I think. I might take one last look at it before we move on. This last adjustment right here was kind of hairy in a way, because you adjust it in and out, but while you're doing that you have to look down in here, and there is a lever. It's very difficult to see even without the camera. And this, when you move your arm in and out, it causes a lever to move up and down. See that lever moving up and down? And the top of this adjustment arm right there, the underneath side of it has to sit on that beveled tip of that arm. See the beveled tip falls down underneath that little bent area on that other lever. I'll show you that in the drawing. Right here is that beveled tip, okay? And it has to be below this little thing right here. When I first started, it was sitting on top. It has to be below. And then when you move your pickup arm, you saw the action. That what happened was this thing being underneath here, this thing slides up and down, and this thing just sort of pulls out of the way. And of course you make that adjustment using that one right there. Right there. Kind of a hairy little situation. I'm not exactly certain what that's doing, but it's working okay now. I've got it underneath that little lip, that little metal lip you saw there. This point is underneath there, and this metal lip here is adjusted to where it's about halfway up that slope. About halfway. Kind of hard to see. You got to kind of eyeball it. Well, that's it. We still have like 9 more adjustments, believe it or not, to do to this pickup area right here. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and cut it off right here. We'll wind up having a video that's 2.5 hours long, which I don't want to do. So I'll take this in, I'll edit all of this crap, and we'll try to get it uploaded in the next day or two. Until next time, this is John. Boy, is it a nice, warm, sunny day. Oh man, it's getting better and better every single day. By the way, old 64 goat, instead of complaining about all that snow you're getting, why don't you just take your toboggan and go find a hill? You and Tommy could have a great time. Just make it happen. Get the video going. Let's see you going down the hill.